Here's the thing that I didn't know in my 20s. You don't have to figure out everything on your own, not only from a coaching or mentor side of things, but there are businesses set up to help you start a fucking business, and it doesn't have to be from scratch. You can start years ahead of all of us other dudes and women that started from scratch and didn't know anything from our left and right hand and didn't know how to even wipe our ass inside of our businesses.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. I am joined by my man, Sean Ryder. What's up, dude?
Emergency. I need everyone with a rake to come to Wardensville, West Virginia and save my A-frame from wildfires.
Oh, you got wildfires raging.
Yeah, huh? super humid and windy last week, and wildfires were popping up all over the place in the Shenandoah Valley, especially northern Shenandoah Valley. And I was actually driving to North Carolina on Thursday afternoon, and so I could see all the different pockets on this side of the mountain, and then more were on the West Virginia side, which is where my Airbnb is. But it's pretty wild. Definitely smoky, foggy, smells like firewood and a campfire. And at one point, I think the fire was up above the Mountain Peak Ridge on the backside of my cabin. So hoping they brought in the National Guard, and they were the helicopters were picking up water out of the local lake that people go to when they stay at my Airbnb and like dropping it. I'm like, fuck, like messaging my insurance agent. And I'm like, am I covered for
forest fires? You're not, are you?
I am, but my limit might be below the threshold. So I might have to bump that up. But I know that the U.S. Fire Service was closing down trails because it rained Friday night into Saturday, and that still didn't put out all the fires, which surprised the hell out of me. So we'll see. Yeah. So I need you guys either to pray or bring a rake, one or the other. Don't do anything else.
I'll pray, man.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I obviously I'm not driving an hour over the mountain, so I am on the praying side, not to get out there and help. But it is cool. Like Wardensville is a town of 250 fucking West Virginia people. And they obviously do not have a fire crew to cover across all the national forests. So literally residents with zero training were going out and they're like, tell us what to do. And they're in the middle of the woods, like raking leaves and digging ditches and doing the fire stops and whatever the leaders told them to do. Supposedly it was fucking awesome out there. So, but yeah, we're trying to hopefully the fires come down, man. But how are you?
Oh man, good. Can't complain. Life is coming at me fast and furious. We should be about 30 days from leaving in the RV. So everything's becoming real now. You were asking how my internet was going to work, and I was telling you that I got the Starlink on order. So we're moving forward with that.
We need to test a podcast or two that are fake podcast recordings to make sure that Jeff's internet is on point. But we're ready to rock. He's rocking the Irish shirt today. He's ready to go. Ready to go. My man, I got a topic for you today.
Okay.
This might be for people who might view themselves as a little more advanced. So, we got 60 plus men in the inner circle, our paid mastermind group, and a lot of them high achievers, whether that's a high income earner, employee of a company, or a business owner, former business owner, leader of a team, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call them. But they are stewards of money, and they're always looking on how to maximize their returns. And there's numerous ways to do that without getting into the foundations on the structure on how to do that. Lo and behold, we are very vocal about the two greatest opportunities for you to build wealth in this country are to invest in real estate or a business. So what would you say to a more experienced person who has capital, has a skill set, and they're trying to identify whether or not they should just park that money in real estate or how would they explore the opportunity of starting, investing in another business? Because if the business succeeds, I'm assuming the average ROI on a business investment is higher than real estate, but real estate is a real thing. I said this to someone over the weekend. I said, I could take $300,000, put it in real estate, and I still have the real estate.
Yep.
But taking $300,000 and starting a business from scratch, if the business doesn't cash flow, I don't have the thing. I don't have the real tangible thing. So have you been through this example? Maybe it's not either or. We don't like either ors. It could be this and, but then, are you spreading yourself too thin if you're doing, where does your mind go when I toss that very open-ended question?
I guess the question to qualify it would be like, what do you want to be doing? Because like you have to have active income. There's no way in most cases, right? Like real estate is slow. It's the long game. It's the wealth builder. Like you buy real estate and you wait, and it's like a fucking train coming down the tracks. You cannot stop it. You sit on it for 30 years and you're going to be wealthy. Like that, you can't stop it. But it's not going to pay your bills in 30 days. And also the other thing that people argue about real estate all the time is that there's better ROI in different investments, which is fine because there can be, but a lot of other investments you can't leverage. I like businesses though, because of your ability to go in and make change on them. Like if you use real estate as long-term rentals, I'm excluding short-term rentals because like that's a service-based business. You do have the ability to pull.
That's a business. Yes. That's a business.
Yes. Agreed. But you have very few levers you can pull in like long-term rentals or even commercial real estate. Like you can do what you can do to increase the net operating income. Meaning like you can do 5% rent bumps or 7% rent bumps annually and things like that. But you can't go make 50% more in a year net income. Like you can't squeeze that out of it. In a business, you can. You can go into a business, you can scale. Like if you're in a service-based business or something like that, or a home services business, you can go in there and go from 1 truck to 5 trucks and fucking change your entire life just with a line of credit that bought 5 trucks. Because now you're scaling your ability to make money. And you just can't do that you can do that in real estate in different ways. But I'm real bullish on both, but I'm more and more bullish on the business side of things as an investment right now, because it also doesn't take a huge outlay of capital. Like, for instance, we have a guy that I mentor one-on-one, and he has a certain skill set. He just exited a business, sold out, and then he has the ability to, he's been on the contracting side of things. So we built him an entire business literally over a week period.
And then sorry to cut you off, not to disclose too much, just to give people more detail. He was actually looking at investing in real estate for the past year and couldn't connect the dots or pull the trigger, just to, getting hung up on hurdles. And then literally over a weekend, you created another business.
Yes. And it didn't cost him $5,000. So when you talk about what does it cost, he put a website up for $2,500. I think he was going to spend on it. And then he utilized his contacts, and I think we're going to spend another $1,000 or something on print material. And just because that's the best marketing for that particular business in the area that we're targeting. But he'll be doing $20,000, $30,000 a month in 3 months, in recurring revenue from that business. Like, he couldn't have done that with real estate as far as even a short-term rental. And what happened was, it was a mindset shift, and I'll be transparent and tell you what was going on. Owning the business and having the ability to use that business as cash flow to live on, to buy shit, like we all do with businesses. It gives you security because you've got a steady flow of income coming in. To a hard stop sale where someone wrote him a big ass check, But what it does is it changes your mindset. Oh, the spigot is now shut off. And so what I think he couldn't reconcile in his mind is that like he wasn't comfortable not having a spigot on. And so what we needed to do was fix that first. And with this fixed, I bet you he buys real estate in 90 days. He couldn't buy real estate because he couldn't see giving up a chunk of money without the spigot running. And so like, which totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
And so, but I'm also like, I just had a conversation. We had a guy on here a couple of weeks ago, Anthony Hudson, who's a friend of mine, and he does a fantastic business. It's called a franchise sidekick. I don't know if you heard that episode, but he's essentially the buyer's agent for a prospective business owner that wants to get into a franchise. So like you think about a buyer's agent in a real estate transaction, they're there to protect your interest. We're going to look at the house. We're going to inspect the house. Like, should you do the deal? Should you ask for things to be fixed and shit like that? So Anthony does that on like the novice business owner side, who's like, okay, I want to open a Chick-fil-A or whatever. And he sits alongside of them with 20 years franchise experience. And he's like, look at this operating agreement. Those royalties are fucking crazy. Like, this isn't the business you should be in. You need to understand. So it's really cool what they do. And like, ever since I interviewed him, I'm like, man, what franchises should I be getting in? Because like, what turnkey franchises do you have? Because they identify you as 3 different avatars when you come in the door. Like, what type of person are you? And like, I was the person that was adding to my portfolio of businesses, if you will. And so they have then went ahead and partnered with 160 different franchises, and they do your personality test. They spit you out the 5 that they think, and then you go choose one, and he walks you through the process for the next 90 days. I mean, like, because I'm not against franchises either, because I think that if you're in a W-2 job, I am all for franchises. Go cash out your fucking 401k, go buy into a franchise and like control your destiny, dude. That's what the Tactical Empire is all about, is like lifestyle engineering and taking charge of your choices in what you're trying to do. Like, don't be beholden to someone else or someone else writing your check. And if you have to give up 6% royalties on gross revenue or whatever, that's a small price to pay for the speed of which you're going to learn business lessons and allow infrastructure to be put in place for that business that you may or may not have the skill set to do. So I don't know. I'm real bullish on businesses. You've got to be savvy if you're going to do them yourself, and if you're going to start from scratch. You got to understand. You got to have some experience. I think franchising is a way to cut that learning curve down tremendously. But just like every other thing, there's snakes out there and people that don't like. You can get stuck in a franchise where you're paying 8% royalties for nothing. Like they might not have a good brand, they might not have good corporate structure, they might not be doing the marketing that's necessary to grow your business, which is part of the agreement with those royalties.
Mm-hmm. Now, why are you telling people my fucking secret on what I'm looking at right now?
I didn't. It's not your secret.
No, man, I get it. I think to take a step back, I think the example of the inner circle guy who had the spigot on with his business, sold his business, had a chunk, then was afraid to put that chunk away for a couple $100 on real estate. I think that's the perfect example. So I appreciate you setting it up and showing that to the people. And then, he'll create fast cash, which makes him feel good. And then he'll be able to actually pull the trigger and swing the bat on the real estate. And this is a good point that I want to make, is he had a particular skill set to where he could stand up a service-based business overnight. And the cool thing about service-based businesses, maybe the answer changes with a brick and mortar from scratch, not a franchise brick and mortar from scratch, because the franchise is supposed to support you with the back end systems that, looking at my CrossFit gym took me 8 years to realize I needed, because CrossFit wasn't a franchise. It didn't hand you shit. Yeah. But now that I am actually exploring a particular franchise, and I did go down and have a meeting for 2 days, and I'm like looking at this shit like, oh, that's what took me 8 years to figure out, and you get it on day one and they're the ones executing on it. Like fucking golden. You just need the team to run the plan. That's literally it. I know that sounds easier said than done. It require a lot of work, but I get that now. Whereas before it was like, no, I want to dictate and control everything. Who cares? Giving away royalties and paying this much to get this thing up and running. It's like, no, I paid more over 8 years to figure it out than I did if I would have done it up front. But the point, sorry to get long-winded. The point that I want to make there was like, I think you minimize the risk in starting the business, especially if it's a service-based business, because you actually, and this is what I kind of said a year and a half, 2 years ago to you when I was looking at my next thing. It's like, I'm going to start my next thing, but it's going to be more based on my work and my knowledge and the internet and digital, because I can test it and turn it off whenever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of cool that I'm on the other side of the coin where it's like that worked and currently is what we're doing, currently is working. I have the real estate portfolio. So yes, the Tactical Empire is a business, but what am I missing? And in my mind, I'm potentially missing the brick and mortar franchise business that I actually still see high value in. I still see high value in that thing, whatever that particular thing is. Maybe in a future episode, I'll disclose it if we move forward. But like, it's cool that you're saying this and we didn't plan this conversation, because I'm literally living through some of that right now. And if I execute on that, then I've kind of done all the big ticket things, started a business from scratch, used it to create my own bank, and then used my own bank and life insurance to buy real estate. Now I'm using the real estate to supplement, my potential next brick and mortar franchise business, while all at the same time building a digital company with you.
Yep.
So it's cool, but I don't have the experience. So I can't sit here with 20 years of experience and tell everyone that was a good fucking deal. But with your lead, everything's kind of worked out really, really well. So, I think it can be an either or this and, just not yet. Do this one first. And this is why coaching and having a mentor is so important, because if you don't have that, then you're going to be spinning your wheels for an hour like this other guy did, sending me Facebook messages every 90 days because he didn't want to be in the program. It's like, if you don't actually have someone holding you accountable and teaching and has the network and experience to do this, you're not going to move as quick, if at all. So kudos to him for getting in the group. Kudos to you, because this was someone that, like, I knew him more than you did. But eventually it was like, hey, Jeff, you actually need to work with this guy, because your personality type and your experience is actually what he needs. He was probably in between you and I. So he needed that person that's ahead of him to really get him there. So I appreciate your insight there. But anything else comes to mind where it's like, it does depend on your exact situation, but any other examples, people, or something from your past that you could kind of let the people learn from?
Well, I mean, and to that point, to finish up that topic on that particular gentleman, like in Thursday afternoon, we had a conversation, and Thursday I had him on the phone with a friend of mine who has built the exact same business here in Houston and exited it and sold it. And so he was able to utilize, when you talk about the importance of a coach or a mentor, like that is what I'm opening up for people, is like, hey, you want to do this business? Let me put you in touch with someone that's already built this business, and he can tell you exactly what he fucked up or how he would start this today if he were to do it again. And so what we did was we got in 2 phone calls with different people that had done the same thing. And so he's heading into this week with a lot of information as far as like what he shouldn't be doing and lessons learned from people who have already been down that path. So there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be super successful at what he's doing, because it's just too much of a home run. It's teed up for him, and it's aligned with his skill set. That said, one thing that you mentioned that I think is very cool is that I think that people, what you're experiencing now by looking into these things and going down rabbit holes, is that instead of going in with preconceived notions about everything, like most people do, you're just more open to opportunities and seeing opportunity in everything. And that's why these things are opening up to you. And you're like, maybe it's not a yes necessarily, but why don't we go ahead and look at this and see what it's like? And I think most people that are stuck in their situation are just dogmatically connected to a belief system that inhibits them from seeing opportunity. So when I talk about a W-2 earner going out and taking their 401k, cashing it out and doing a franchise, like they probably fucking turned this thing off when I said that. Like, oh my God, why would you ever do that? And then other people are like, well, that's really stupid. That's your nest egg to retire on, blah, blah, blah. And like, if you were open to accepting different opinions and different thought processes, like, and you were willing to go down that rabbit hole, it may not be a good fit for you. But the exercise of going out and gathering the information and then doing a pros and cons list, or like, we're at this point in our family and it's not the time to do it. Like, my wife just had triplets and they're like, it's not the time to take on a brand new business that I have to actually work in every single day. Like, there's reasons to do that. Like, hey, my 9 to 5 works for now, but maybe we should revisit this a year from now when the kids are a little bit older or whatever, right? Just being open-minded is where most people miss the mark on like expanding their knowledge, their wealth, their everything. And like, what you're experiencing is these things coming into your life. They've always been there. You were just closed off to receiving the messages or seeing the opportunity in the actual thing that was exposing itself to you. So I think that's fucking really fun to watch. Personally.
Well, yeah. I mean, personally, I mean, 5 years ago, if you would tell me, hey, it would cost $300,000 to start this business from scratch and they're going to take 7%, I'd be like, what the fuck? Who would ever do that? And this is very
short-sighted attitude, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, it's because I built this other thing from scratch with a $5,000 cash infusion of my own fucking money of being a high school teacher, right? Like, it was very tight windowed and I had my blinders on. And so it is interesting, but I think a compliment to that statement is, you know, this whole situation, I have to be very fluid on, because I can move very quickly and I can get really excited, but I'm always on a fact finding and information gathering mission. And as I get this little piece of information, it might take me from like a 95% gung ho, let's go, back down to like a 67%. I'm like, well, fuck, Sean, you need to slow down a little bit. And then I'm like, well, is it a hard no yet? No, it's not a hard no. So what information do I need next? So then I go get that information. It might take a day or two, but then that might pull me back up to like an 87%. And I start putting some pieces together, and that helps me visually, you know, going from the clouds down to the dirt, so to speak. And you're never going to have 100% of the information, but like, as I discussed this with my wife, like, full transparency, it's like, she almost wants a yes or no right now because, you know, she's got her job and she's got other things going on in her life. And it's like, you know, Sean, it kind of seems like you're wavering. I'm like, I actually am wavering just because the information's changing. Right.
Yep.
And then if I receive a piece of information, for example, that takes me from a 95 to a 67, well, then I need to find the next piece, and and then my brain, I'm like a puzzle maker. So it's like, well, I may not have liked this thing, but I could swallow that if I know I have this other person, so to speak. And this episode is a good complement to the one that I think we released prior to this. And like, that's where I'm at right now. It's like, I need to get the next piece of information to solidify my thought and clarify this vision that I see, because I see this working. I just need a couple more of the puzzle pieces. Sure. I don't need every piece, but I need more of the puzzle pieces to make me feel better about the investment that I'm potentially going to make. So it is really cool. So I appreciate your insight there, is what you see from me from afar, so to speak. Obviously, you know, bouncing some thoughts off you is always good, but it's what I like about this podcast is it's a real time look into the value of mentorship. Just to reiterate that again, right? Like, it just, some of these thoughts that you spit out there, I don't think about. And so when I hear it, it really helps strengthen, you know, the actions that I'm taking. But don't be so closed off, as Jeff said, but also don't be afraid to just take the next step until you have to put your name on paper and front some money. Like, explore. Exploring's okay. It's okay to get 70% of the way there and then back away. Like, I had offers on properties that I backed out of. You know, I've started little side hustles. This is why I like the service-based thing, because the example I use is like, I did start little things on the side over the past 5 years. And
Yeah.
some of them kind of did well, and then I lost the passion for it, or they didn't do well, and I was like, well, fuck this, is a waste of time. Like, so I wasn't on the hook really for anything besides my time. So,
But the good thing that you're doing is you're working through this with a filter, meaning you are working through this with your wife. Because
yeah,
like for me, dude, I am an eternal optimist. I can figure out how to make a shit sandwich taste good if I'm mission driven on eating that shit sandwich.
yeah,
I will
yeah.
figure it out. So like I can sell, I am the greatest salesman in the world to myself. I can sell myself any fucking idea. I'm like, this is going to be great. And this is why. And like, it could have so many red flags. And I could be like, those red flags don't matter. He's a murderer. No big deal. Let him babysit. So like,
Let him
I know
babysit.
that
'Cause
about
I want to kill
myself.
someone. Let him babysit because I'm in the mood for killing someone. That's all good. I see the solution here.
And so like, but that's where my wife is an amazing
Yeah.
filter for me. Because
Yeah.
she knows my excitement. She also knows that like if I dig into something and like it does go sideways, that it's going to consume me to make it right, because like that's the way it works. And like that's just how I'm wired. And so like she has saved us a lot of those pitfalls potentially. But to your point about information gathering, dude, I go so far down the hole on stuff that I like get excited about. Like I will be an overnight expert 48 hours later. Like I'm just like, and I'll consume and I'll consume and I'll get 99% there, and then I'll be like, fuck no, absolutely not. I would never do that. And then my wife's got like whiplash. She's like, what? I thought we were doing this. And I'm like, yeah, we were, until I read that one thing, and that one thing changed everything. And I will not do that. And so that that's why it's important to gather all the information for one thing, but then also think like worst case scenario, like where does this thing go?
Yeah.
And like when we talk about businesses and investing in businesses, back to the original topic, businesses have a lot more components than real estate does. Real estate's very transactional. It's cut and dry. There's contracts for almost everything, and you know what you're getting into. Even the contractors that you work with usually have a contract that you're walking down that. Did you do these 14 things on this list? If you didn't, you're not getting paid the full amount. Blah, blah, blah. Business is very agile and malleable, and there's a lot of things that go on with it. And so if you're investing in an actual brick and mortar or something like that, you're going to deal with a lot more potential headaches, right? And so I always like to think with the exit in mind, though. Like, what are you doing? You could fall in love with it and run it for 50 years. There's no problem with that. But that's why I love the book Built to Sell more than anything. Like, I think people read it completely different than I did. I was crazy about that book because I'm like, you should build every single business just like this right now. And it doesn't mean you hate your business. Like, we've been in rooms in the past where if you talked about like building your business to sell, it was like fucking taboo. And people were like, oh, you must have a shitty business or something. Fuck that. I want my business built to sell the day I started. And then I want to make every decision as the owner operator of that business. I want to make every single decision for that business with that same thought process in mind. Because I am looking at the valuation. I'm looking at the EBITDA, and like, if it's still filling your bank account and you're still enjoying it, then who cares? Like, but still you do want to drive up that number on the balance sheet for that asset at all points in time. And if you didn't want to do that, I don't know why you're doing it. And so like, I just think people think of their businesses like their baby all the time. And they think of that with a negative connotation, like you've got to close it, you've got to sell it, or you've got to have this negative relationship with it. And if it is your baby and if you're the best parent, you should be pouring into that thing and trying to get the most fucking valuation you possibly could out of that at all times. And so
I know you can build your own thing and exit too. We've seen plenty of people do that, but I think that is actually, to go back to the franchising thing, like franchises have brand name. They have brand awareness. They might have a national or regional awareness. So from an exit standpoint, this, the system's already there. Even if it didn't like cash flow the way that you wanted, like there's other people that may be interested in that brand. Whereas coming from the space that you and I came from, it's a little bit more soft. There's not as many pool of people to choose from in terms of potential sellers, or potential buyers of a non-franchise business.
That's an excellent point that we didn't touch on at all. I mean, you talk about the 6% royalties or the 8% royalties and shit like that, and people get caught up on that and get hung up, right? But then when you think about an exit, like imagine you go into this business and you ride it for 300 grand of take home a year for 5 years, whatever. And then you want to exit it and you want to sell it, and you can sell it literally in 60 days because another franchisee who's in the exact same business that's fucking 6 blocks over wants your list.
That's what's exciting. That's what's exciting about this opportunity. It's the brand I love, the product I really love, but there are already franchisees in the system opening up in numerous locations. And I have heard from their mouth, their goal is to consume parts of the national market and then liquidate. And so it's actually a hedge. Little old me and my wife going in, starting a 1 unit, getting it up and running, get it set up. And if it cash flows, we'll keep it. If it cash flows enough for the time, effort, and team, we'll keep it. Or if it ends up not playing out the way we want, but it's still a structured business, then one of those other potential franchisees would come in. It doesn't mean you get all your money back, but it's a little bit more secure in terms of like the potential exit. So that is just to let the people listening, like that's actually why I like to explore it. And I will give kudos to my wife as well, because she's more of an integrator, and she definitely is willing to, go and move and do a lot of the work. Whereas I'm like, well, I want to talk about the mentorship side of things, which is a little less of the sweaty side, but it sounds like her and I are really good compliments. So it is cool to go through this experience with her, but here we go. We're 30 minutes deep again, man. That's kind of how long we want to keep it. If you guys have any questions about this, hit us up. We'll explore this topic again. I'm going to check out Franchise Sidekick because that was pretty cool. I'll have to go back and listen to that episode as well. I have the website pulled up here to explore it. I just like looking at it, see how other people structure things. And guys, you don't like, here's the thing that I didn't know in my 20s. You don't have to figure out everything on your own, not only from a coaching or mentor side of things, but there are businesses set up to help you start a fucking business, and it doesn't have to be from scratch. You can start years ahead of all of us other dudes and women that started from scratch and didn't know anything from our left and right hand and didn't know how to even wipe our ass inside of our businesses. So, Jeff, appreciate your insight. Why don't you send the people off with any last words?
Let me know if you want plugged into that guy. I'll hook you up.
Let's go.
It's worth a conversation no matter what. Because he probably knows some things about the company you guys are looking into too.
Cool. Awesome.
Like, that's his background. Guys, let us know if you've got any topics for us. DM us, hit us up on Instagram. As always, follow us on YouTube. We would love to talk about whatever you guys want us to talk about, but we'll stick to business, real estate, life insurance, overall kicking ass, families, RVing, all the good stuff. You guys have a great week. Hit Q2 hard, set some goals, kick ass. Let's build some big shit.
Let's go.